Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online and Avalon in association with the new Dodge Calibre.
Hello and welcome to Baddiel and Skinner's World Cup podcast.
On this show we'll be hearing the secrets of the England dugout, we'll find out about the masked stranger at the Sweden game, I'll make a strange late-night visit to a very special place, and we discover why hotel residents complained about David Baddiel.
So it's 12 minutes past 1 in the morning. We've just got
in
back,
Dusseldorf.
Just got back from Cologne, where we went to see Sweden versus England, and then we're starting the podcast. Is what we're doing.
It's good that though.
First time to start.
Well, there's something like it feels a bit like I used to listen to Radio Caroline when I was a kid. It was like the pirate radio ship, and you could hear the old.
What?
You could just hear that.
Percy Throw, was it?
I think it was my dad chasing the neighbours. Yeah. But anyway, it felt like you were under the blankets and it's all exciting. So I think that's how people should listen to this podcast. Because we're all under the blankets. Me, Dave and Rochi under the same duvet.
Yeah. And I feel that's strange.
You all right, Rochi? You feeling the pace over there?
I'm fine.
Yeah, good old Rochi. Rochi's staying with us even though we're going to be recording until well into the night. But it's kind of an intense experience going to an England game and then coming back here to record, because England games, it started to see an England game become like a World Cup England game tonight, where you thought, oh no, this is going to be dramatic and frightening and nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Have I ever told you this thing? I'm sure I have, that Thierry Henry once said about the England team. No, not to me. Thierry Henry was once interviewed and someone said to him, what is the best thing about the England team, and he said their desire, and then someone said what is the worst thing about the England team, and he said their desire. I've always wondered whether he just didn't understand the question. Yeah. I just thought, I guess no, didn't you hear me before, or whether it was the most brilliantly clever thing to say, because I think that is true. That England teams are brilliant for the fact that they really, really want to win, and that's also their Achilles heel, because once they think they're not going to win, they really panic, and that's what we saw in the second half today.
Yeah, but. Well, maybe. I think every team really, really wants to win. They just don't panic like we do. Once the Swedish goal went in, oh man, they really did panic. It was all set up as well, so I was so confident today. We went into Cologne earlier to do an interview on 5 Live with Victoria Derbyshire, and there was a big bunch of English fans taunting these Germans, and they was going 5-1, even Heskey scored, 5-1, even Heskey scored, and I thought, the fans are on top form. We are going to destroy them tonight. I went through. For early 2 games, what I've been saying to people is things, but the slow starters that you don't want to pick too early, and things like, that's a sign of the good teams, the one who play rubbish and then win. Yes. In this game, I came out of it, about halfway through, I remember, halfway through the second half when Sweden had scored, I was saying to myself, yeah, see, we've got the luck with us. That's the thing. This is obvious. This is our names on that World Cup. They've hit the crossbar.
What you did do is you changed the tune of your destiny halfway through. Yeah. Instead of it being the slow start, suddenly we were the lucky team halfway through. But
about 8 minutes from time, I honestly thought to myself at one point, this is so rubbish, I thought, I'm not wearing this T-shirt again. I think it's unlucky.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to say I thought Crouch had a terrible game again. Are we going
to say that everyone?
Well, until he plays well, I think we are.
Well, look, I had a text message from a mate of mine, who as well, actually, Danny Trelfa. Yes. He said, I'm really enjoying the podcast, but I'm getting a bit fed up of the Crouchophobia.
Well.
And after the Michael Owen thing, it looks like we might be slightly stuck with it all.
Yeah, well, we don't really understand what happened to Michael Owen, but we understand he's been very badly injured.
By the time you hear this podcast, you'll probably know better than us. But apparently Alan Shearer got a text from him saying, I'm in terrible pain.
Oh, that must be very upsetting for Alan Shearer, I would have thought.
I should think so.
But also, it's not bad enough for Michael Owen as well. We discovered this week that the England players really stretching their ideas for nicknames, actually call him Mo. M-O, obviously, very simple. But the thing is that you used to do a joke about Mo's.
Well, when I grew up, you see, in the Black Country, we called homosexuals Mo's.
Yes.
We used to say, there's 2 Mo's.
When I grew up, not in the Black Country, I used to think Mo, that is a name for a homosexual.
Yeah, but when I started doing stand-up, I played the Comedy Store, and I said, I went on stage, I said, I've just been to a gay musical down the road. It was called 5 Mo's Named Guy.
Yeah.
and they just looked at me.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know, that is also based on Five Guys Named Mo, which I think is also not a reference that many people know about anymore.
We can't go describing everything. Anyway, it was a terrible thing. We didn't even know what had happened with Michael Owen, did we?
No, he just seemed to collapse. No one was near him, whether he just collapsed. And
we spent most of the last podcast predicting that he was going to do great.
Well, you actually wrote 2 songs based on the notion that Michael Owen was going to set this World Cup alight with his scoring.
I was certain that was going to happen.
You're really going to have to change the tune of your destiny, aren't you?
There was a great thing, though, when Joe Cole scored, is that the angle we were at, because we were sitting incredibly close to the pitch. We were in the third row.
Amazing.
I bet we're on some of the telly coverage.
Oh, well, I hope so.
Which is fantastic. I still care. Because I was at the test match and I was sitting at the front, and you saw me, Shane Warne goes for the ball, and you saw me. And I was watching with people, and I was going, "Look, that's me!" Like I've never
you've never been on telly before. Fantastic. I hope that some of the players are going to recognise us and perhaps wave. I have to say that if a player waved to me, even if that meant they'd missed the ball and they went on to score, I'd still be quite pleased.
But we really were hoping that. Pathetically, we thought, we'll be recognised when the players will wave.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Anyway, we watched Joe Cole, and the angle we were at, you saw him hit the ball, and I was saying to Dave, it's like I once was asked into the cockpit in an aeroplane, like a big plane.
You weren't flying it, were you?
No, they just said, "Do you want to come up for the landing?" And I said, "Yeah, all right." I was a bit frightened, but I went, and you could see the landing strip in the distance, and suddenly flying, which has always slightly spooked me out, seemed the simplest thing, that the plane just heads towards the landing strip and just glides in, and it's all so perfect. And that's what their goal was like. You saw him hit it, and you could see, you knew where it was going.
I went about as mental as I've ever gone, actually, because I have a particular thing about Joe Cole, because I have loved him, I feel, ever since he was, even when he was at West Ham, I kind of loved him, really wanted him to come to Chelsea. And then as you know, I have a real thing about players who are considered to be flair players in English football to be a luxury, and he's kind of the king of that. And so for me, when that goal went in, it felt like the consummation of a love affair that's gone on for like 10 years now.
Well, he done great with that goal. I think he's probably been our player of the World Cup.
We came from over the ocean. We came from over the sea. For 2 games, we played like James Blunt, but still managed to win in Group B. Hooray! We came from an island called England. From Chelsea, a player called Cole. He may have for his body a large head, but he scored a fabulous goal. Everybody, bring back, oh, bring back the World Cup for me. Don't just end up the winners of qualifying Group B. Sven Goran, he may be a bit dull.
Well, I don't know.
Sven Goran, his hair may recede.
Careful.
He may not know where to play Lampard.
Maybe left back.
But the fact is he's beaten the Swedes.
Well, he didn't quite beat them.
Not quite beat them. We beat them in the group table.
Finished above them.
That's what counts.
Okay.
So, farewell Trinidad and Tobago. Farewell to old Paraguay.
Old Paraguay.
With all the bonuses you've earned here. 1 bag of duty-free you can buy.
Hooray!
Oh, bring back. Oh, bring back the World Cup for me. Don't just end up the winners of qualifying Group B. One last time. Don't just end up the winners of qualifying Group B. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We set off, obviously, for the game in the Dodge Caliber, as we always do.
Oh, God, yeah.
And we had a chat in there, while we were in there, about a little idea that I'd had about how we should get to the game and how we should play it.
Now, I think people might not believe this next section is true, but I swear on anything you like, this is genuine.
Here we are, we're in the Dodge Caliber, and we're on our way to Cologne for the England versus Sweden game. One thing that's happening in this game, which hasn't happened before, is that when me and Frank go to England games, just to let you in on a little secret here, we do get quite a lot of attention from blokes wanting to take their picture with us and all that kind of thing, and generally hug us and be friendly to us, and it sometimes can get a bit much, to be honest. And I think that the main problem with this is my face, because although we're both on the telly, my face seems to be the more recognisable face. But what we thought we'd do as an experiment, and also because we thought it'd be nice to see if we could go to the game just as ordinary fans and not have any bother and just sit there, I've bought a mask. I've bought a cartoon kid's mask. I would say, if you can remember Roger de Courcy, the older people amongst you, Roger de Courcy and Nookie Bear, he looks like a mask of Roger de Courcy's face. Have you got any other descriptions?
No, I think you're right. Now, looking back, of course, I should have scoured Dusseldorf for a Nookie Bear mask that I could have worn. Yeah. One with the eyes that rolled on it and stuff like that. And the two of us together, that would have been a really good day out.
Yeah, although I think Roger de Courcy might have got a bit upset if we actually did a whole vent act.
Do you think Roger de Courcy sounds like some sort of musketeer figure when you say it a few times? I'd like to see him having a sword fight with Robin van Persie. Has it occurred to you that one or two people might actually recognise me? And then they'll come up to me and they'll always do it. They'll say, "Where's Dave?" And what am I to do then? Say, "I've no idea. Why don't you ask Roger de Courcy?"
Yes, you say.
I think Roger de Courcy has got some information on that particular line of inquiry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think you should do. Actually, I am a bit worried about that, because if I'm completely wrong and you're recognised as much as you normally are, then basically I'm just going to look like a complete twat in a Roger de Courcy mask.
Another thing that would be very disappointing to discover is that Roger de Courcy is in fact more popular than you are, and you get twice as mobbed as ever.
Yeah, that would be terribly disappointing. Where's he from? Roger de Courcy, just as a small piece of information for you, was on Fantasy Football once. And he was a very nice chap, and he did very well as a guest. But he did say this thing that we were never too sure about, which is, we said to him, "Do you go to football anymore?" And he said, "No, I don't go, because I was at Wembley, and there was an incident in the Olympic Gallery." And we've never, ever found out what that incident was. And I'm worried that now, going to a football match, the other person who I assume was involved in that might see me, think, "There's Roger. I told him not to come after that incident in the Olympic Gallery," and that'll be the end of me.
I think he's probably approached by a couple of roundheads and had to fight his way out of there. If anyone knows what happened to Roger de Courcy in the Olympic Gallery, I'd be very interested to find out. There might be a bit of information on the street, as it were. I imagine Hoggy Bear.
Well, not Hoggy Bear. I imagine Nookie Bear will know, if anyone.
Yeah, but I think Nookie Bear's lips are sealed. Let's face it, if Roger's trying to keep it quiet, Nookie's not going to spill the beans, is he?
Yeah, so that was our journey to the game.
I have to say that when we got to the game, we did have the best seats ever.
We did. Because sometimes I'm not sure about being too close, but somehow at this game it was fantastic.
Well, not only were we in the third row, though, but the seats were sort of upholstered. They weren't those hard plastic ones. You know when they talk about armchair fans? We were armchair fans tonight, lovely. But we were at the game. I don't know how that happened. We must have just got lucky with the tickets. Yeah. There was a bit, because we were at the back of the dugouts.
Yes.
You were looking at all the England subs were all sitting there in that. It reminded me, because there was like a few people in front moving about. You know when you're in a chip shop and it's really crowded, and the queue kind of snakes around, and you look between people's heads and you can see like the glass case, and in there there's a nice bit of roe and some Savoys. It was like that, except instead of the roe and Savoys, there was Jermaine Genius and Theo Walcott. Yeah. But they all looked all sort of cosy in their little plastic dog. It was so close. Anyway, one thing about sitting so close was it gave you a little insight into some of the goings-on in the dugout.
Rooney's come off, he's sat right in front of us, he's stomped the dugout, threw his water bottle, gobbed, he looks really, really pissed off.
Very closely, he's knocked his head on the dugout, he's bled, and now he's got a huge red cross of St George all across his hands and front.
He looks quite scared. I tell you, because he's sitting in front of us with his back to us, it's a bit like when a mad bloke gets on the night bus and you're really relieved that he sits on the front seat, but you're a bit scared that he might look round at some stage.
So anyway, Rooney came off and Steven Gerrard came on, which, I'm saying Gerrard now because you say it. I never say that ever.
The whole nation will say Gerrard by the end of it. Steven Everard.
Steven Gerrard came on, and
that was our bit. We had, you probably tell from this so far that we take this dictaphone to the games with us, and we actually recorded the bit just as Stevie G was coming on. I got quite emotional.
You got very emotional about it.
Stevie Gerrard actually is stripped off and ready for action. That's got to be a good thing.
It's Gerrard, is it? Gerrard stripped off.
You know, there was a moment in the first game against Paraguay where he just made one very good pass, and again we were quite close to the action, and I looked at Stevie Gerrard and thought to myself, this bloke is a world-class player. We're going to win this World Cup.
What do you think again now that he's coming on?
There's something about Gerrard that says winner.
Michael Winner.
I did hear him say to Peter Crouch, calm down, dear.
I'm very glad it wasn't Michael Winner who came on there. That would have been terrible.
He couldn't be a good director of football. Except he's
he was never a very good director of film.
I don't know. Death Wish. Well. Death Wish is 1 to 17. He was excellent.
Yeah. One thing actually that did happen is that it was very unsegregated, the game, in a good way.
It was a marvellous example of a multicultural society.
It was, and we were next to...
In fact, I think there was a samosa in that fish shop display cabinet.
No, I think that was Tord Grip. But we were very... we were just standing next to two Swedish fans. One of whom was a little bit drunk, but a very nice chap. And... something that I don't think you probably know, I'm not sure any of you listeners know, he told me something about one of the Swedish players, and I recorded him telling me it.
Okay, a Swedish player called Alexandersson has just fouled Joe Cole, and what's happened?
The first yellow card in history
for him, and
throughout the national team, throughout the club team, throughout whatever.
What was he voted?
Sorry?
He said he was voted...
He was voted the friendliest player in history.
The friendliest player in history?
Yeah.
Oh, that bloke was voted the friendliest player in history, and now look what's happened.
So I don't know where they did the vote. I mean, he said in the world, so I missed it. But apparently this bloke, Anderson, I'm not sure which Swedish player it is, but Anderson was voted the friendliest player in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know what criteria they
Lee
used.
Bowyer must have been gutted. He must have been right up for that, you'd have thought.
Did you see that at one point at the end of it, Lars Lagerback, who we have referred to beforehand, was talking to Sven?
Yeah.
For quite a long time. I think they must have been talking about Ulrika. Because what are two Swedish men going to talk about? I think he was swapping...
Fish.
Fish?
Yeah.
What the fish and chip shop in the dugout, you mean?
No, I think they were
talking... there, Jermaine Genius looks like a piece of road.
They always talk... The thing is that Steve McLaren was right there, and I felt a bit sorry for him, because I bet they were talking in Swedish, and it's like, you know when you go into a chinois takeaway,
yeah,
and they start going, and you think, I bet they're slagging me off.
Yeah.
Do you know that? I don't mean to be disrespectful to the Chinese, it's just my own English paranoia.
Yes. Yeah, well, maybe they were slagging off Steve McLaren, but they were saying in Swedish he's got a very red face, hasn't he?
Well, I bet.
And he manages Middlesbrough.
Lars Lagerback was saying, can you believe he's taken over from you? What a nightmare that's going to be.
That's why Stuart Downing did the squad.
Well, I know it serves him right. I blame the fake sheik.
Well, as ever, we've had some emails, and we've had quite a few responses to something we asked a couple of podcasts ago, which is if you say anything, kind of just mental say stuff, Tourette's we called it.
Football Tourette's.
Football Tourette's, in response to a footballer's name or a footballing thing. Well, send them in, and we've had a few. This person who is called AJ says, not exactly a case of me calling something out, but whenever I see the German goalkeeper Jens Lehmann play, I always instinctively find myself wishing that Garth Crooks or whoever would ask him in a post-match interview, so Jens, how would you sum up the game in layman's terms? I think that's good.
That is good.
I like that one. And he follows that up. He's got a lot of this going on in his head, AJ. And incidentally, with regards to the Turkish player Tugay, who you mentioned in the last podcast we did, I imagine that his fellow teammates hope he never joins the army, bearing in mind the famous old Turkish saying, when two guy goes to war, one is all that you can score. I think he's worked on that one, you see. I think that's come out of him in the layman's way.
I like it there. The fact that, we can only score one goal it's a good thing.
Yeah.
What was the previous one about him? It was some song.
It was also a song. It was two guy, hush, hush, eye to eye from the old Kajagoogoo song. It sounded just like Paul Gammaccini there for a second, the old Kajagoogoo song.
It's great that we've had two gay ones, and none of them was about him being too gay, which is how it was actually spelled.
Yes, that's true. And also about a player not at this World Cup.
No, obviously we have... But a player who is actually a massive star, I would say, so far in this World Cup is Miroslav Klose, and the German striker. And... Smodge has sent us an email, and he says, whenever Miroslav Klose's name is mentioned, I get up and sit right in front of the telly, much to the non-amusement of my mates.
Must be very non-amusing indeed. And also, he's getting mentioned a lot at the moment, so presumably you're pushing the telly into the wall.
So he says Klose, and what I like about that's not just a verbal Tourette's. It's actually he actually takes the trouble of moving the chair.
He hacks out his Tourette's.
I think that's right at the base of that Tourette's thing, because I know if I was doing that with Klose, I wouldn't be able to not do it, even though it involved moving the chair.
I think that's very you, that. I'm a bit worried you might start doing it.
Do you think that's very you, that is?
Yeah.
Anyway, I particularly like this one.
This isn't a Tourette's one, this is just another email about something we talked about.
If you remember, we speculated on the idea that Garner got confused with James Garner.
Yeah, and that they were each getting phone calls, and it was terrible business.
And we did someone from Ghana sort of say, no, I've told you, this is a country and not an American actor. No, go away.
Yes. It was all based on James Garner having an answering machine getting confusing messages.
Yes.
Terribly good it was. Podcast 3, I think.
That was a bit of a new reader's start here moment. See, Roach is laughing at it all over again.
That's because he never listens to the podcast. He's never heard it before.
Anyway, this from Brutehead, or is it Brothead? The Great Smell of Brute. Says, thank you, Henry Cooper, if you remember.
Yeah, no one knows that's Henry Cooper.
The Ghanaian FA may have another reason to be disgruntled with the actor James Garner. On Thursday, they play the USA in the biggest match in their history, with a win guaranteeing them a second-round place. The BBC is showing the concurrent Italy-Czech Republic match, and the Ghana game is on UKG2. But, it says... at 3 p.m, ITV, instead of showing the football, have instead decided to show the Rockford Files. So they're actually up against Jim Garner.
Garner is up against the Rockford Files, played by Jim Garner. That's extraordinary.
Well, he didn't play the Files, obviously.
No, he didn't play the Files, but I think that's going to cause a lot of confusion, because I think a lot of people are thinking, well, I'll watch Garner. I'll watch Garner. It's very exciting for Garner at the moment. Then they'll tune into the Rockford Files. It'll become very confusing for everybody.
And at the end of it, they'll say, well, that's all very well, but who won the group?
Yeah, the next thing you know, James Garner will be playing Germany in the final. Anyway, talking about Tourette's, I have my own little Tourette's thing in this World Cup. Not going to carry on because unfortunately they haven't got through. But when Togo play on German television on one of the channels, they don't write the whole name of when the score comes up. They just write Tog, and if Togo have scored, it says Tog 1 or Tog 2, and that sounds to me like a duvet rating. And I always think, that's a bit of a cold duvet.
That's a very thin duvet. My duvet is like a 13.
Yes, but in Togo, where it's very hot, they probably have a very low Tog rating.
The thing about that, though, is there's 4 letters in Togo. Why bother abbreviating that at all? It's just laziness on the part of German television.
You're right.
See, I've got a proper Tourette's thing. Whenever they say Togo, I say, no, I'll eat it here. The best thing about getting old is that when I'm at West Brom now, I actually shout, well done, son, and things like, come on, son, and all that, and genuinely. And I used to hear blokes shout that when I was a kid and thinking, oh, God, what? The players are actually younger than you. And now I find it quite satisfying.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we've probably talked about this before, but there is always that thing of, like, footballers being a mark of your own age. It's now become politicians for me. I've noticed that there was a time when I thought being older than footballers was old. Then obviously I thought being older than player managers was quite old. And now, I'm about the same age as, I'm older than a few managers. So I'm starting to look to politicians, but David Cameron is younger than me. So I don't know where to look to next. Who will I have to look?
Popes.
Yeah, popes. Police chiefs, possibly.
I find police chiefs are getting younger nowadays.
Oh, God. Retired people. They'll have to be. They won't have jobs. That's the trouble. Is there isn't a job because they've all retired.
Well, Roy Keane is younger than you, and he's retired, so that won't work either.
But there's the odd footballer that I can't believe he's older than me, like Luis Figo, for example. I saw a picture of him the other day, looking about 400, and he's 33. Right? Now that is nearly 10 years younger than me. And I sort of looked at him and I thought, no, but he's such a bloke with his big jowls and his kind of dad face and his big nose and his sweaty. And I thought, no, but he's younger than me. It was hard for me to take.
I mean, Ronaldo, I watched Ronaldo against Croatia, and he kind of physically, he really does look like a bloke who is not of professional football standard fitness. When he sat on the bench, he looked really dejected. He seemed to find a bit of bench where no one else was sitting. So he looked like he was sitting on his own when none of the seats around him were filled. Yeah. And he looked sweaty and exhausted. But to his credit, he's never had his teeth done. So he was sitting there, and he had a very kind of round shaved face. And then just the sad little teeth sticking out. It was like a rabbit trying to get out of a cantaloupe.
I know you say it's to his credit that he's never had his teeth done. Whose credit is that exactly?
Well, I think a lot of footballers nowadays, because they're like pop stars, you'd expect them, to get things done, to get the teeth fixed and whitened and, their hair done. But one thing about Ronaldo and Ronaldinho, for that matter, is that they both got teeth that you'd think a rich man would get fixed. And I think it's a kind of tribute to football that they're saying, such is my footballing ability, and that's given me such stardom. It doesn't matter if my teeth are odd. I can still. Both of them have got very stunning girlfriends.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point though, because we were talking in the last podcast about Abigail Clancy and Peter Crouch, and in a way, you could say that David Beckham and Frank Lampard and all those footballers who dress really well and really groom themselves, they're missing the point. Because the point about being a footballer is that you can be a very ordinary or indeed an ugly looking bloke and pull fantastic women without doing anything to yourself, because you're a footballer. I
agree with that, but Beckham, if Beckham was a plumber, he'd be able to pull women because he's a good looking bloke and he's incredibly turned out. I think it's like Beckham is like a bloke who's a very good shot with a gun. And Peter Crouch, because he's quite a funny, weird-looking bloke and has still got a beautiful woman, he's like a bloke who's blindfolded or maybe shooting in a hand mirror over his shoulder. He's really proving that though everything is against him, he can still hit the target and get the gorgeous girl.
Yeah, but I think you might be right that in Brazil, where football remains probably the most paramount thing in their culture, they wouldn't bother. They wouldn't bother to think, oh well, I should look better, I should clean my teeth out, because it doesn't matter. Although it may also be the case, we shouldn't forget that with Ronaldinho and Ronaldo, there's not that much that can be done. I don't think. I think medical science, cosmetic surgery, hasn't got to a stage now where it can make either of them look that attractive.
I think it's only their teeth with them. I was wondering last night whether Ronaldo is incredibly pissed off that the best footballer in the world is called Ronaldinho. So it's similar enough to his name.
Well, wasn't he named after him? Didn't Ronaldinho, when he started, want to be called Little Ronaldo? And so I think he's named after him.
So is that what the "een" bit means? It means Little Ronaldo.
Eno means little, yeah. And certainly the way that Ronaldo is, most people are going to be Eno compared to him. So
that's right then. So the Ronaldinho means Little Ronaldo.
Yeah, that means Little Ronaldo. Yeah.
God, I never do that. So Robinho, was he a big Brian Robson fan?
No,
so Robbo became Robinho.
No, he saw a big bottle of Ribena, apparently, and he thought, I'd like to be a smaller one of those.
But what I was thinking is, because there's Ronaldo, who's playing badly at the moment, and Ronaldinho, who's probably the best player in the world, do people say in conversation, I'll tell you who I really, really like. Ronaldinho is the best player in the world. And people say, what, that big, fat, goofy... And they go, no, not him. So constantly when people are having that conversation, Ronaldo's current rubbishness is being brought to the fore.
Well, there's another one, isn't there, in the Brazilian team, Ronald McDonald or something. There's another Ronald.
Ronald McDonaldinho.
Ronald McDinho in there. There's a lot of Ronalds in there. But, and I think it's odd, to be honest, that the whole Brazilian team has gone to worship, around the idea of a name that is Ronald. Because Ronald is a very shit name, I think, and yet they've all adopted it in one way or another.
Well, not all of them, to be fair. Two of them.
All of them. One of them's called Kaká, so that's not very good either.
He obviously thinks that's a shit name as well. We're staying at the Radisson in Dusseldorf at the moment. I'm sure you're aware, Dave, I don't know if Rochi would be, that they have a hotel porn channel here. And it runs from midday to midday.
Yeah, I always put it on straight away as soon as I come in the room, because I know I might as well get the most use out of it.
Yeah. So I've never signed up to a hotel porn channel before in my life. Do you know that? And on this one I thought, well, to hell with it. I'm going to.
You've never done it before in your life?
No, I always do that. I always do that like 30 seconds preview. That's plenty for me.
Are you Frank Skinner or some sort of imposter in a Frank Skinner mask?
Anyway, I did it, and I thought to myself, I must make sure I get my money's worth. And I got up and I thought, well, I've got to get in there before midday to get my money's worth. And then so I had a phone call and blah, 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 and I forgot about it. And suddenly there was this massive church bells mournfully tolling.
Where? In the room?
No, but they were outside the hotel.
Oh.
And I thought, I wonder if they rang them to tell everyone that the hotel porn has just stopped.
I'll tell you, this hotel as well, it had yesterday, it had work starting at about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'd been up doing the podcast the night before until about 3 o'clock. And I was really furious. And I phoned up and I said, stop the work. And, it's terrible. They kept on saying they would do it and they didn't. I was furious. But then a little part of me thought, oh, well, might as well make use of the time. On with the porn channel. I was quite pleased about it in a way.
Pretty soon you were both hammering away.
People were complaining about the work not stopping.
You said, I don't mind the hammering, but I don't like that screaming towards the end. Anyway, we did win the group.
We did win the group. We shouldn't have let that goal at the end, but we did at least win the group.
No, and we shouldn't have let them hit the crossbar twice. We shouldn't have had two clear to off the line.
No, that's the luck. That's the luck that you say is now going to take us to the World Cup.
Not only that, but I've now decided that Sven is a brilliant manager because he brought Stevie G on. Not only did he score, but he cleared one off the line as well, so that was perfect.
You shouldn't say Stevie G because I liked how you say Gerard.
Well, I'm trying. You're making me self-conscious. So we're going to play Ecuador.
Yeah, we're going to play Ecuador, which is a result, let's be honest.
If we can get a goal early Ecuador's, we'll be all right.
Do you know Christina Aguilera is from Ecuador?
Is she really?
Yeah, that's what I've heard, yeah.
No.
And she is beautiful, no matter what you say.
No, I've always very much liked Christina Aguilera.
Okay, perhaps she'll be at the Ecuador game.
Yeah, right. So anyway, people listen to this, they think, never mind the massively important football match. We want to find out what happened with the mask.
Yeah, well, we do explain, I think, on the way back.
We are now in traffic. We're outside the stadium in Cologne. We're leaving. We've won the group. But more importantly, how was the mask experiment?
Well, I'd say overall a success. I mean, I wasn't taking anything statistical down, but I reckon there was about a 60% reduction in general recognition of Baddiel and Skinner. What do you think?
Well, there was one moment when we were leaving the hospitality area and heading for the pitch where I looked round and there was this old guy walking behind me and I thought, where the bloody hell has that idiot gone now? And it was you in the mask. I completely fell for it.
At one point I thought I was going to hyperventilate. We were just walking around. I thought, this is terrible. I can hardly breathe. And the other was that as we went in, people started chanting England Till I Die, and I started joining in, and then I noticed that when you chant, the mask vibrates. It's not really designed for chanting. And as you know, Frank, I've had in my time various problems with a double chin. I've had kind of chin gyms and chin vibrators, and I think this might be the answer. It's just a chant in a Roger de Courcy mask.
Well, the thing is, when I was chanting, I could hear at the side of me, what was like being part of some terrible kidnap plot. I was reminded that when you were complaining about the heat, about the time that we sold our souls to the devil and went to an England game with Tony the Tiger for promotional reasons, and were given some gelt in order to do it. And Tony the Tiger, after a bit, said, I'm going to have to go and lie down. He went and lay down by the refreshments thing. And he said, sorry about this. He said, I got sunstroke last week as the Pink Panther. Anyway, the mask was, amazingly, because I thought it was a stupid idea, it was actually something of a success, I would say.
Yeah, I think. How did you feel? I thought as we walked through, particularly, there was a bit where they've got, lots of stalls on one side and people singing and all that. Loads of England fans there. We walked through that and I don't think anyone noticed us.
I felt perfectly at home with it. I just thought I was kind of living off the shared celebrity of hanging out with Roger de Courcy. I think my reputation has gone up somewhat.
One thing I did notice actually about it, I didn't really notice from England fans, but it might be because it's a sort of foreign place with Swedes and Germans, but that's the sort of thing they like. All the stewards and all that kind of people, as soon as I approached them in the mask, smiled at me with a kind of, there's someone with a friendly old mask on. They seemed to think it was really funny.
Well, it's made me think now that when you see the Test match on the television and you get like Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble and people like that sitting there in the big outfits, it's probably people like Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones who have just got in those outfits so they don't get bothered by the crowd.
We're here in Mintrop Street in Dusseldorf, in Dusseldorf's rather skanky red light district.
Oh, God, you can smell the AIDS.
We've come here because Frank is a big fan of Craftwerk, and we're standing opposite. Are they called the Kling Klang Studios?
It is the Kling Klang Studios. Yeah.
Can I say Kling Klang Gooly 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 Watcher? Kling Klang Clue.
But that wasn't one of theirs.
No.
No, there's a very grotty yellow tile building in this street, and somewhere in there, it's shared by about 5 or 6 different companies like Electro Muller and places like that. But somewhere in there is Craftwerk, and apparently they arrive here at night. I mean, what time is it now?
It's now 11:30.
Yeah, apparently they arrive here about this time of night, and they go and record some magical music into the early hours, and then they disappear again.
I have to say, it's an amazingly unglamorous kind of place. It looks like the sort of place where if your nan had lost all the money that she ever had, she might end up here.
I thought your nan did lose all the money she ever had.
Yeah, she did end up here. That's
I
the odd
thought
thing.
she
She's
left
actually in
you up there.
Craftwerk.
Is she
know?
really?
Yeah.
I thought she was in Fretwork.
Yeah, right opposite them is something that looks like a Turkish restaurant. It is in fact some form of very, very rubbish brothel, because not only does it not have any pictures of women on it, it just has pictures of men being soaped up in it. Just some soapy men.
I suppose it might be a Turkish bath and not a brothel, to give them the benefit of the doubt.
What, you think it might just be a place where you go to get some soap on you? Good, okay, well we're going to try and see, who's the bloke you spoke to in Craftwerk once?
I once met Ralph Hutter,
Ralph Hutter.
who's like one of the main men.
Is he... He's not the one who sings. Is he the one who sings?
He's the one who sings and always holds his hands to his mouth as if he's calling a mate across the street, yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know if they're going to come out. You're going to stay here all night waiting for them?
Well, the trouble is if you hang around here too long, I think one might be proposition. Shall we move to the side
Well,
of the
what
road?
you could
Then
do,
we'll be able
though,
to
I
see
think
that.
it's quite good in a way if you went on a pilgrimage, because what you could do is go in there, get soaped up, go to Girls, maybe stay at the Acorn Hotel for a bit, and still watch out for Craftwerk. That could be a great holiday for you.
The great thing, if I got soaked up and didn't get rinsed, I could go into the studio and they couldn't throw me out because they wouldn't be able to get a proper grip on me.
That would be terrible for Robert Hutter.
Ralph.
Ralph Hutter. Get this man out of here. No, he is too soapy.
Can't get a grip on him.
What will my grandma say? I think I know him.
So I'll show you, if you come to this door over here, there's actually, and this is very exciting, if you look through the door there,
Yeah.
can you see that kind of silver grey post box
Yes?
there?
Yes.
And on there, if you look in tiny writing, it says Craftwerk,
Does it? I can't see
Hutter,
that.
Oblique Schneider, who were the 2 main men in Craftwerk. That was so near yet so far
Well,
away.
surely you could come back here and drop a little note in there about, some ideas you've got for a Craftwerk song.
If I said, why don't you do one that goes...
Yeah,
I think that'd be good.
They go, yes, why hadn't we thought of that? What a great idea.
Yes.
How old are
The
Craftwerk
soapy
now?
guy, that's as stupid as he looks. Oh, they're in their late 50s, the 2 main men.
Do you think they ever pop out? No, we probably can't say this. It's a sex vision. Think we can say that?
I think, well, they're in the same street. I just can't imagine them doing it because they all look a bit cold and dark. You know, whenever you stand in a street like this and there's lights on upstairs, aren't you almost expecting to see a naked woman in the
No,
window?
always. In fact, that's all I'm thinking about now. I've lost interest in Craftwerk. I just think there must be some women, normally quite poignantly maybe, approaching the window before they deal with another client.
What, desperately, sadly, you think?
Sadly looking out into the night thinking, I've been waiting here to see Craftwerk for 4 or 5 decades and they haven't turned up yet. Now I have to sleep with another man who I don't like. So it's time for our regular competition, and regular listeners, who are most of you I hope, will know that you can win a car, a Dodge Caliber.
Yeah.
Now we're a little bit miffed with
Well,
Dodge.
I don't know, but I'm not so much miffed, I'm upset.
Are you hurt?
Well, I've been so enthusiastic about the Dodge. It's such a lovely car.
Oh, it's a super car.
And
isn't
then
it?
tonight we were actually going to meet the people from Dodge
I was
before the
excited.
England game.
I was really excited
We
'cause I
got there
thought-
at 7 o'clock. This is a 9 o'clock kickoff
Yeah.
in Germany.
You know what I thought?
bear
I
in
thought they
mind.
might be coming in a whole fleet of Calibers, and I just wanted to see that.
Yes.
I wanted to
A
see
sort
it.
of formation flyby,
Yeah,
like the Red
exactly.
Arrow.
Yeah, exactly like the Red Arrow. More exciting. than that, I
Anyway,
think.
can you believe this? You know, I mean,
We're in hospitality.
We've been big stars in our time. We're number 9 in the English charts as we speak.
We're number 1 in the podcast charts.
Yeah, so we turned up at hospitality and Dodge didn't show.
Dodge didn't turn up.
We sat there for an hour in hospitality.
They got out of Dodge, or we got out of Dodge. The fact is, we don't know whose fault it was because we're working for the Times. Someone from the Times turned up and did say, Dodge aren't coming, and for all we know, Dodge sent lots of messages over.
But anyway, we sat there like fools, and now I can't really. I don't tonight. I don't have the spirit for the competition at all. But we better do it.
Don't worry.
This is What number is this Mystery Voice? What number is this podcast, Roger?
Hang on. For anyone who doesn't know, you have to build up a whole squad. There's defenders and midfielders and attackers.
If you don't know, listen to one of the previous podcasts. I can't keep repeating this every night.
This is Mystery Voice number 7, isn't it?
That's correct.
Number 7.
I lost 3 teeth and broke 1 vertebrae.
So that was Mystery Voice number 7. The clue, obviously, is in what he says, and then he's got a slightly French accent. Now, we've got Alex, the Times lawyer, who I think instinctively knew that we've been talking about Dodge, and he's on the line. Are you there, Alex?
I am indeed, Frank.
It's nice of you to stay up, Alex, to check that this is all legal and all right.
Have we said anything terrible about Dodge that will cause big problems at the Times newspaper?
No, I think it's clear that you think the Dodge Calibre is a very good car, and it's important to get that across.
Very good lawyer.
Yeah. So that's it. Tomorrow we leave Dusseldorf and we go back to Munich, where we've been once before for a sort of interim podcast between England games.
That's good. I like Munich, and we won the group.
We won the group.
Bring on Ecuador. That's what I always say.
Ecuador. Christina Aguilera or no Christina Aguilera?
Good day to you.
Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online and Avalon in association with the new Dodge Calibre.